Is anxiety recovery permanent? Or is it something that you always have to deal with? It's always something that you're gonna always have to manage. This is one of the most common questions I get, and rightfully so. It was one of the questions I had during my anxiety recovery. Is this something that I could just cure? Once I get out of this, I'm done for good and I never have to deal with this again? Or is this always something I'm gonna have to manage? Is it almost like something that's gonna be in remission and then a few stressors pop up and then I fall back into the cycle? What I want to talk about in this video is more focused on long-term freedom. Not focused on, here's a quick tip, trick to make you feel a little bit better. But how does recovery really look like long-term? Because that's all I wanted. I just wanted to get out of this, going back to living, and never really having to deal with this again. So this video is going to be more focused on what to expect from recovery and whether or not you'll fall back into the cycle. So pay attention. So this is something I don't really see a lot of people talking about. Most people end up talking about things to help you kind of cope in the moment, saying things to kind of make you feel better, maybe even kind of helping you understand what the symptom is so that you don't fear it so much. But that still never really gave me a clear idea of how recovery really looked like. How was I going to get out of this? And if I did get out of this, if I stopped feeling these physical symptoms, if I stopped getting these intrusive thoughts, if I stopped feeling these feelings of unreality, what we call derealization, depersonalization, if I stopped feeling these weird emotions that I was feeling, this numbness, this weird sadness, well, what was stopping it from ever coming back in? I found this pretty ironic because, to be honest with you, I actually didn't know what made me fall into the cycle. See, most people end up falling into the cycle from a major stressful situation. Sometimes it's as simple as just maybe smoking some weed and having a panic attack. But I had mine from work, and it wasn't really from work. It was just more I fell into the cycle while I was at work. Sure, I was a little bit stressed, but I didn't really know what made me fall back into the cycle. And when I fell into the cycle, well, my biggest fear was, well, what's going to stop from me getting another panic attack randomly like I did that first time? What's going to stop from me having these terrible physical symptoms that was convincing me I had every malignant disease out there? What was stopping me from having these intrusive thoughts that were absolutely terrifying, where I felt like I was running away from a thought, or even these emotions? Well, even though I had these tips and tricks, and even when I understood what recovery looked like, well, what stops me from falling back into the cycle? And what I have found personally, now I have recovered, let's say I would say about almost 8 years at this point. And what I can say pretty confidently, very confidently, and not just from my own experience, but from helping people around the world, truly, is that if you are able to overcome this, meaning you understand the mechanics of anxiety, you understand what to do to get out, and you focus on long-term freedom, not short-term comfort, there is no way you fall back into this cycle ever again. You may bend in life when there's stressful situations, but you will never break. And this isn't just from my own experience. This is honestly, genuinely from helping people around the world. Now, what you may find is you may find people on the internet who talk about how they have fallen into the cycle before in the past. And somehow this time they've fallen in even harder. And they thought they were recovered. They thought this was done. They thought this was something they would never have to deal with again. And yet they fell back in. And oftentimes they fall back even harder. And when I was experiencing my anxiety, I had read similar things. Granted, now since I do this more on a public front, I see this more. But even during my struggling days, I'd read these in comments and posts and on forums that, you know, people had fallen into this and they came out, but they fell back again. And this is always just something you have to manage. Now, here's the truth. The truth is that a lot of times when people fall in the first time, they really don't know what made them fall into the cycle. Meaning, they don't really know how they got out. What happens is that sometimes like they were experiencing the symptoms and then they just kind of forgot about it. And then it just went away. And then it was gone. And then what happened was maybe later on in the future, there was maybe some stressful situation. Maybe you're in a global pandemic, depending on when you're watching this video. You experience something that kind of makes you fall back into the cycle. And what I find with these individuals is they fall back in and they don't know how to get out because they don't know how they came out the first time. Now, what I have found with anxiety recovery, once you understand what's happening and when you understand the solution, you actually will never fall back in because you know exactly what it was that made you fall back into the cycle the first time. See, most people, in fact, everybody that's in the cycle is in the cycle because they don't know how to come out. Nobody is in this cycle by choice. Nobody wants to feel these miserable symptoms. And so if there was a way to make this go away, they would. What happens is that people end up being unsure of how to get out of the cycle. And so because they don't know how, they try so many things and nothing works. And so they just come to the conclusion of, okay, well, this is just something I'm always gonna have to deal with. And this was one of my biggest fears because I really felt like it really reduced my quality of life. And I just wanted to go back to living, just being my carefree self, just going back to living my life, not worrying about this stuff, not even uttering the word anxiety, just having a good time. And the first thing I really want to mention is in order to make sure that you come out of this and that you stay out of this is by really understanding the mechanics of anxiety. Like I said, most people fall into the cycle because they don't know what got them in or they don't really know how to get out. Before even focusing on getting out, you really have to understand the mechanics of what's happening. What's happening? Are you experiencing an actual physical illness? Are you actually in this feeling of unreality where you're feeling like you're in an alternate dimension? What is this out-of-body experience, the depersonalization? Or even if you're struggling with these intrusive thoughts or these emotions, what's really happening? The first thing to really understand before you even focus on recovery is understanding what's happening. If you can understand what's happening and truly grasp what's genuinely happening, the solution becomes increasingly clear. Now look, the solution isn't overnight. It isn't something that, you just, do something and then you sleep on it and then the next morning it's gone. This is more focused on long-term freedom. One of the hardest things for anxiety sufferers to deal with is the fact that you have to be a little bit patient. But that's okay because you can still come out of this. Believe it or not, when I was struggling with anxiety, even the fact if somebody told me I could get out of this was a huge win for me. Believe it or not, when I was struggling, it was such a dark time. I feel like the internet was such a different place too, that the consensus was so overwhelming that you could not get out of this, that even if somebody said, hey, you can get out of this, but it's just gonna take a little bit of time, I honestly felt like I was on cloud nine. It felt like one of the greatest things out there. So even though I'm telling you there may be a little bit of patience, if you focus on the right steps, you can really focus on long-term freedom. So understanding the mechanics of anxiety is very key. And so if you really want to know more, how does the mechanics of anxiety work? How to really get out of this issue, this anxiety cycle, this stress response, so that you can just focus on living and not constantly be convinced that you're having some sort of physical illness, Google searching your symptoms, worrying about going into a party and what happens if you have a panic attack. What I'll do is I'll put a link down below. This is a link to my private report. This really is what it is that I've essentially written out step by step how to come out of this, really showing you step by step how to come out. This is the exact same steps that I show all of my clients around the world to get them back to living freely. Every success story that you see on my channel, these individuals have done these steps. Every single person. And so I've put the link down below. It's absolutely free. It's for you. Now, why? The reason why I've laid it out for you essentially is because, look, I was struggling with this. I've been in your shoes. I've been kept up at night wondering, is this going to be a life sentence? How am I going to get out of this? And that level of suffering was unnecessary. If someone would have just explained a few things to me, it would have made so much more sense. So what I've just done is I've put a link down below. This is a report. It's yours. I hope you enjoy it. And it's one of those things where you may need to read multiple times. Good. Make sure to read it multiple times. Really understand the concepts here. Really understand how to really focus on recovery and apply it yourself. What I find is a lot of individuals become too goal-driven and they focus too much about recovery that they don't even focus on the steps of recovery. They're focused 5 or 6 steps ahead what recovery may look like. And I find those individuals aren't really focused on the right steps. The focus should just be focused on recovery and just focused on getting a little bit better. The reason why I'm talking about recovery is because this is exactly what people who recover experience. but they experienced it. This isn't something that they read in a book. And even me explaining this to you doesn't really show you what recovery is like. But what I find ironically every single time is when I'm working with somebody to help them overcome and go back to living, the first thing they typically say is, Shaan, I know you've helped people, but like I'm a really bad case. I've struggled with XYZ. My symptom is this debilitating. I've struggled for this long. And then what happens is that when I help them, and then when they go back to living, and when they actually overcome to the point where they know they won't fall back into the cycle, the funny thing they always say is, Shaan, oh my God, yo, if I can recover, anybody can recover. And that's actually true. But the thing is that don't focus on recovery as an end goal. Recovery is a process. Yeah, this isn't a finish line. The best way to focus on recovery is just focus on getting a little bit better. And then once you get a little bit better, get a little bit more better. And then recovery happens as a consequence. Then you will really understand what I'm talking about. Even though I make these videos and they sound optimistic, it's only because this is exactly what I experience and what I see when other people recover. But you just have to experience this for yourself. So if you just focus on long-term freedom, you'll be able to see the people that are the least likely to ever fall into the cycle are the people that have already came out of it. Anybody else, people that haven't ever fallen into the cycle, people that have fallen in but haven't really came out, they're always more likely to fall back in than someone who has truly been able to come out because they know exactly what it was that put him in the cycle and kept him in the cycle. So they know exactly what not to do. So I hope this video made sense. I hope it shows you that if you can just focus on long-term freedom, you can go back to reliving your life, not relying on anybody or anything, not even relying on these videos. So if you really want to know more, if you really want to be like, Shaan, I get it, but like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know how to do this. Like, how do I know if I'm accepting correctly? How do I know if I'm even recovering? Well, we could just do this together. In fact, I have a mentorship program where I'm guiding people around the world, taking them by the hand, step by step, getting them to ultimate freedom, to the point where they don't even need the mentorship. They don't need anything. They just go back to living. They forget about me. They forget about watching the videos. They forget about my team, and they just live. And they don't even utter the words anxiety anymore because it's not a big deal. So we can do this together. In fact, I have a team of people that are taking people by the hand and taking them to recovery. Look, these individuals aren't just some random people. These are people that I've personally helped who have also fallen into the cycle and people that have just gotten out, either by themselves or from the help from someone else. And what you see constantly is that there are similarities in recovery. There are certain tenets and certain principles that are universal. And if you could just focus on a few things correctly, recovery is inevitable. So if that's you, I'll put a link down below to essentially an application for my mentorship. Now, I will be honest, with this mentorship, we are very selective with who we accept. In fact, most of the time we cancel the appointments. We really want to make sure that we're working with people who are serious about long-term freedom. We put a lot of effort and a lot of dedication to helping people fully overcome. So we really want to be with people who are also just as dedicated, who aren't interested in getting quick fixes, quick tips, getting instant relief. They're more focused on long-term freedom. So if that's you, hit the link down below. When you hit the link down, you'll put your email address and you'll have to watch a short video. It really explains to you what the mentorship is about, how it works, and whether or not you're a good fit. After that, there's an application page. When you fill out that application, my team and I will review that application. If you're a good fit, we'll have a strategy session together. My team and you will have a strategy session just to make sure you're a good fit, and also if you have any questions on what to expect. And if this doesn't feel like it's a good fit for you, that's absolutely no worries. We'll still give you resources to help you. But if you are a good fit, I'm going to take you underneath my wing, and we can make sure this problem is fixed once and for all. So the link is down below. Check it out. I'll see you in the next video.